what in your opinion is the most reasonable proof of God? What have you found to be the most convincing proof of God's existence?
Well, I think that those are two questions. For me, my favorite argument for the existence of God that I find the most compelling is a version of the cosmological argument, which goes like this. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. Something can't just come into being from nothing. Secondly, the universe began to exist. I think we have both good philosophical arguments and scientific evidence for the finitude of the past, from which it follows, third, therefore the universe has a cause. And when you do a conceptual analysis of what it is to be a cause of the universe, you arrive at a being which is an uncaused, beginningless, timeless, spaceless, enormously powerful personal creator of the universe. So for me, that is a very convincing argument for God.
What other arguments are there? The argument from first cause, well, that shoots itself in the foot, because if you're going to postulate a God as a first cause, you've then got a really big problem explaining where the God came from. The whole point of the Darwinian enterprise is that it explains how you can get complexity and the illusion of design from primordial simplicity. So the argument from first cause shoots itself in the foot. Pascal's wager, you're better off betting that there is a God, because if you lose the bet then you go to hell. That's a silly argument, because it depends on, it assumes that you know which God it is for a start. If you bet on Yahweh and it turns out to be Baal or Thor, then you're in trouble.
I think the most compelling is what I call the moral argument. And it would go like this. One, if God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. That is to say, in the absence of God, everything becomes socioculturally relative. Two, but objective moral values and duties do exist. There are some moral absolutes, some objective values and duties. Three, therefore, God exists. Now, this is an argument which is impossible, I think, to ignore, because every day you get up, you answer by how you treat other people, whether you regard them as having intrinsic moral value, or whether they are mere means to be used for your ends. And so this argument, I find, tends to be the most convincing for people.
And worse than that, on Dr. Craig's view, most of these people, many of these people certainly, will be going to hell because they're praying to the wrong God. Just think about that. Okay, through no fault of their own, they were born into the wrong culture where they got the wrong theology and they missed the revelation. Okay, there are 1.2 billion people in India at this moment. Most of them are Hindus, most of them therefore polytheists. Okay, in Dr. Craig's universe, no matter how good these people are, they are doomed. If you are praying to the monkey god Hanuman, you are doomed. Okay. You will be tortured in hell for eternity. Now, is there the slightest evidence for this? No. It just says so in Mark 9 and Matthew 13 and Revelation 14.
Well, buckle your seatbelts, because I'm going to give you 5 quick arguments for the existence of God. Number 1 is the universe had a beginning. We know this now from science, we know this from philosophy, that the universe began to exist. It's not eternal. Therefore, there must be a cause outside of the universe that's personal and powerful and intelligent, spaceless and timeless. That sounds a lot like God. The beginning of the universe points towards a beginner. Second, what we call the fine-tuning of the universe. There are certain universal laws of physics and cosmology that exist on a razor's edge. And they all have one strange thing in common. If these laws of, say, like gravity were the slightest bit different, our universe could not exist. Yet they're all set right where they need to be to allow the existence and sustenance of complex life. The fine-tuning of the universe points towards a fine-tuner.
What is the probability that Yahweh is the one true God in Amun-Ra, Aphrodite, Apollo, Baal, Brahman, Ganesha, Isis, Mithras, Osiris, Shiva, Thor, Vishnu, Wanton, Zeus, and the other 986 gods are all false gods. You guys are atheists just like me of all the gods I just rattled off. Some of us just go one god further.
Third, DNA. Do you know how much information is inside the DNA in your body? I saw one study that said the amount of information in one cell in your body is equivalent of about 500,000 movies. That's 500,000 movies. Can you imagine? Now the question is, where does that information come from? Can't be explained by evolution, can't be explained by chemicals or time. Whenever we see information, a sign that says stop, we say a person put it there. So just as the information in a book points towards an author, the information in DNA points towards a mind or an author of life.
Worldwide, there are about 10,000 distinct religions, each one of which may be further subdivided and classified. Christians, for example, may be apportioned among about 34,000 different denominations. From a scientist's perspective, such percentages cry out for an explanation. Why do so many people believe these things? But from a skeptic's perspective, which is what I do, what are the chances that these guys got the right God and the right religion, and the billions of other people that don't believe what they believe got it wrong? When you leave the house tonight, just ask yourself that question. What are the chances that they just happened to get it right, and the tens of billions of people that lived before Jesus, they never heard of it? The tens of billions of people that have lived since then who don't believe that, they just happen to be wrong? Or is it more likely that all of these religion and God beliefs are socially constructed, psychologically constructed, and that none of them are right in any reality sense, in any ontological sense? They're all constructed this way.
Fourth, the moral argument. Basically has two premises. Number one, if there's objective moral values, God must exist. There are objective moral values, therefore God exists. Now, how can we say there's objective moral values? Well, number one, it's kind of obvious. We all know that torturing an innocent child for fun is wrong. We all know that. It's obvious. Second, in The Abolition of Man, C.S. Lewis said across cultures universally, there's common principles that everybody knows and lives as if they're true. Principles of honesty, principles of courage, principles of caring for posterity. Now, the practice varies, but the principles are universal. So if there is an objective moral standard, and it seems to point towards God, I mean, after all, this points to a standard outside of human beings, to a universal law that we're supposed to follow, there must be a God. So if there's a moral law, it points towards a moral law giver. And last, I think one reason to believe there's a God is because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Jesus claimed to be God in human flesh. He died on the cross. The tomb is empty. We have radical accounts of Jesus appearing to people. And then our first witnesses who were willing to die for this conviction.
It used to be believed, I mean, the number of gods now it's infinite, and a new god is created almost every day by some cult or other, but it used to be that. There was a belief that gods were in the trees, in the woods, in the springs, in the sea, in the clouds, and so forth. Polytheism of a kind. Then something a bit more polytheistic, like Olympus, where there was at least a location for the divine, but it was multifaceted. And then monotheism, getting it down to one. So I regard this as progress of a sort, because they're getting nearer the true figure all the time.
I actually...
The best evidence for God, as I have said on the show before, and as I say in debate with Sam Harris, which I think is going to, he'll be putting that out pretty soon if he hasn't already. The basic idea is that if you believe in free will, if you believe in human reason, if you believe in our capacity to understand the universe, if you believe in a predictable universe with laws that govern it, if you believe we do not live in a chaotic universe without meaning, if you believe that you can derive aught from is, then you need to believe in a divine creator. Okay, and that's not an argument for the Bible, but that is an argument for God, right? That's the Aristotelian argument for God, is that there is a rationale behind everything. If you believe there's a rationale behind everything, then you believe in God.
Why is there something instead of why is there nothing? Why does the universe exist at all? Why is there something?
But surely the big question is not why, but how. Well, why is irrelevant?
Okay, fine. How is there something? Because you think of God as the prime mover. How is there anything instead of nothing?
I don't. This is a ridiculous
Is there a
premise.
prime mover? Is there a demiurge that started everything?
Well, outside science and nature, I don't believe so. Because the interesting thing is, this is the thing, right? So, I'm an agnostic atheist, technically. Agnostics means no one knows whether there's a God. So everyone's technically agnostic. We don't know.
That's true.
So
that's true.
an agnostic atheist is someone who doesn't know there's a God or not, as no one does.
So you're not convicted of your atheism?
Well, I
You're not
am.
Sure.
No, I am, because atheism is only rejecting the claim that there is a God. Atheism isn't a belief system. Atheism. So this is atheism in a nutshell. You say there's a God. I say, can you prove that? You say no. I say I don't believe you then. So you believe in one God, I assume?
In 3 persons, but go ahead.
Okay, so you believe... Okay. So... But there are about 3,000 to choose from that have been, people who believe in...
I've done some reading, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So basically, you believe in... You deny one less God than I do. You don't believe in 2,999 gods, and I don't believe in just one more.
Right.
Causal lines and explanatory lines. What is the argument in a nutshell? How would you explain it to maybe a lay audience? How do you prove the existence of a necessary being?
Yeah, so I think of it in terms of pathways. And I like to build pathways that start with people's own position. In fact, I have a website called necessarybeing.com. And this is just a survey site, and it asks you about your beliefs, and then shows how to deduce a pathway from your beliefs to a necessary being.
Yes.
Now, in one of the opening chapters, our opening argument gives a kind of classical pathway. And the kind of simple formulation of that goes like this.
Yes.
So premise 1, any contingent portion of reality or any contingent thing or things is going to depend on something. It's going to be caused by something, or, it's not going to just exist on its own. There's going to be something else that produces it. Then the next premise would be something like, if every contingent portion of reality has a cause or depends on something, then there's got to be some kind of non-contingent or necessary portion of reality, and so therefore there is a necessary or non-contingent portion of reality. So that would be a simple formulation of the argument.
How can so many people be wrong?
Well, there was a time when everybody believed that the world was flat. There was a time when everybody believed that the sun whizzed round the earth. People are very, very frequently deluded. And by the way, of course, there was a time when people believed in Zeus and Apollo, and in other parts of the world they believed in Thor and Wotan. People have believed in fairies and leprechauns. Everybody in this room, I would guess, knows what it's like not to believe in the god of some other religion. You know that if you happen to be born in the Middle East, you'll probably be Muslim, and people who are born in the Middle East believe equally fervently in their god. They can't both be right. There are so many different gods that people have believed in throughout history.
So what people believe is really an accident of geography?
Exactly right, yes.
Now, when we look at how people used to think about life, they said, no, life can arise spontaneously from non-living chemicals. And yet every single biological experiment has shown us that that simply is biologically impossible. Life doesn't arise from non-living chemicals. From where did life arise? Where did life originate if it doesn't arise from non-living chemicals? You see, the idea that there's no God suggests to us that there had to be some singularity without a cause that exploded, and that explosion brought about design, which we've never ever seen happen, and then ultimately somewhere the non-living chemicals gave rise to life. But that's biologically impossible. Life demands a supernatural creator.
It's when you get them. I think there'd be more atheists and less faithful if you weren't allowed to teach anything, you weren't allowed to mention any gods or any beliefs or atheism, right, until they were 20. I think we'd see a different pattern. The human brain, when it's young, is a sponge. It has to be. It has to take in all the information. It has to trust its parents, its elders, to survive. Without question, don't touch the fire. Why not? Don't go near the wolf. Don't touch that spider with a red bit. Don't touch that. Why not? Just don't. There is a God. What? There is a God. And if you're bad, you go to hell. Okay? And if that's constantly confirmed, like all the other things, wolves eat you, black widows kill you, fires burn you, if it's given that same level of credence and truth, you're never going to get over it. It's going to be a lot harder to undo that.
Thanks for watching. Many more videos will come out soon, so make sure to subscribe. Cheers guys. Have a good one.